Hello everybody. So I'm sorry I'm recording all these on my cell phone, but I'm here in the UK. I don't have my computer, I don't have my mic. So this is kind of what I'm left with. And that being said, today I'm here in Windsor. I'm just down by the river. I'm going to go see Windsor Castle later, but I wanted to come down and see the swans because there is a lot of swans and they are truly incredible, spectacular creatures. I don't think people who haven't seen them in person understand how big they are. They are massive. They're bigger than most dogs. But we're not here to talk about swans as much as I'd like to. We're here to talk about the American election results. So the American election. Just a kind of an interesting note comparing kind of American versus Canadian election. I think this comes down to the fact that Americans just have a lot more positions they vote on. In most elections, we only vote on a representative. Like provincial and federal, we cast one ballot. Municipal, there's more names on it. There's a councillor, a city councillor, a regional councillor, a school board trustee, and the mayor. So I think it's like 4 or 5 votes you get in those elections. And even so, though, votes are just counted a lot faster in Canada than they are in the U.S. When we had the municipal election in Toronto, 60% of the votes were counted within 15 minutes, and all the votes were counted within an hour and a half. And all the council races, we knew the results in an hour and a half. The provincial election takes a bit longer because Ontario is so big, parts of the province are in different time zones. Also, it's just a little more complex. Some areas are a lot slower than others, just in terms of how long it takes them to figure out who's won. Also, elections, obviously, where it's very, very close, like less than 1,000 people, or rather less than 1,000 vote difference between the two candidates. Those they have to recount a couple times, but I mean, you can't really hold that against them. When it's that close, you want to make sure. But even in terms of federal elections, aside from the fact that the country's just really big, and like I said, it's in different time zones, and the polls close at different times, it's counted very quickly, within a couple hours who won, etc. So, the U.S. election. We aren't sure exactly on some of the House and Senate races in the gubernatorial elections. But it is confirmed at this point the Democrats have taken the House, although the Republicans have picked up a couple extra seats in the Senate. So I'm going to start this off by saying, don't get blackpilled. Okay, we lost one. It wasn't a blue wave. It wasn't huge. We can recover from this. And I think a lot of people lately, we have been having a lot of successes lately. Bolsonaro won in Brazil with a fairly comfortable 55% of the vote, despite likely election fraud. Salvini is now in Italy. He's removing Kebab and he's removing Wanderer. And Italy is getting a lot better. And he has very high approval rating. And he'll probably get a much larger percentage of the popular vote the next election. Brexit looks like it is going forward at the moment, at least. So that's good news. What else has been happening? We have a good coalition in Austria between the People's Party and the Freedom Party. And they look like they're cleaning stuff up there. The alternative for Germany is doing a lot better than it had been. And we do have Trump in power, and we got 2 new Supreme Court justices. So, I mean, and Doug Ford is Premier of Ontario. So just to list a couple, I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff going on, but at least we're having victories. And there's always going to be setbacks. There's always going to be ones you lose. And we lost this one. The Democrats now control the House. The good thing is they don't control the Senate. And the Senate is where where appointments are confirmed. So it's likely Trump will get at least one more Supreme Court appointment within his term. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is quite old, and she has a history of health problems. So if she dies off, then Trump will get a 3rd Supreme Court justice, and that'll be, the court will be center-right for a generation. And once again, people are like, oh, Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, they aren't conservative enough. And, like, they aren't perfect, But as I've said, none of them are going to find a hate speech clause in the Constitution, and neither of them are going to take away your guns. And that is super important because, as I've said, all the tech companies are based in America. And if you think Google is bad, if you think Facebook is bad, well, they are bad, but they would be so much worse if they were based in China. I don't think we have any conception of what they would be like if they were located there. So that is, we aren't going to have hate speech laws brought in. If anything, they're going to rule on other stuff. And it's looking like Trump has like this master plan where he's doing a executive order or something to try to end birthright citizenship. And they're going to take that to the Supreme Court. And because he now has a majority on the Supreme Court, he's going to get birthright citizenship struck down. So no more anchor babies. That's amazing. So things aren't like going all bad, but there's going to be some setbacks. There's going to be some setbacks. You're gonna lose some, but at least we're winning some. At least it's down to like an actual fight, as opposed to us just getting pummeled, body blow after body blow after body blow. We aren't in the Bush era anymore. We don't have like complete milquetoast. John McCain's gone. I forget if Lindsey Graham's retired, but yeah. So Trump still has control of the Senate. He can't be impeached so long as the Senate is still around. So that's another good thing in our favor. What actually happened? Why did the Republicans lose? I mean, it's very hard when you have the entire media attacking you. It's very difficult to get anywhere with it. I think that when we're dealing with kind of situations like this, you don't have to focus on how much they lost but how much they got. In the face of, and we haven't seen the demographic breakdown of it, but I would imagine probably like 70% of white people voted Republican. And at the end of the day, I think that's what you have to focus on. What percentage of our people object to what's going on? How much do our people think in terms of being a identity group? Because, I mean, like as I said, like black people, Hispanics, etc., think in terms of being an identity group. They have their interests. They vote Democrats as a bloc. And gradually speaking, our people are developing an identity too, in the United States at least. So that's a good thing. Once again, Trump can't get impeached. There's still control of the Senate. Now, it was going to be almost impossible for the Democrats to take control because all their seats were up. If the Republicans were doing a bit better, they could have grabbed a whole bunch of seats this time. But they got a couple extras so they can afford to lose a few if the next election goes poorly. Once again, as to why Trump lost, why the Republicans lost control of the House, I think there's just been a lot of hoopla, a lot of, once again, the media attacking him. Some of the things haven't happened, like the wall didn't get built, etc. Obamacare didn't get gutted as much. Well, it didn't get completely repealed. The whole Kavanaugh thing, I think, probably hurt their election prospects. Another thing you have to keep in mind, and this is kind of an ongoing victory for us, is the more hysterical the media gets, the more they make stuff up, the more people lose faith in them. And I think you have seen over the last decade or the last 20 years, the media's lost pretty much all credibility. I mean, CNN is now a byword for fake news. In parts of Trump, but also, I remember back when I used to watch liberal talk radio, they also thought that the mainstream media sucked. So there is a force turning against it in favor of the new media, which is a lot more open to us because the barriers to entry are much lower. And you don't have to rely on corporations or government funding, all of which is left-wing, you don't have to rely on their approval and that sort of thing. So there's all of that, and that's all good. Once again, like, is there an exact reason why I think the Republicans lost? I don't know if we can really say that for certain. It's a very, very difficult thing to say why elections go one way or another. because what people say, like when you ask them an opinion poll, can be different. People don't want to admit certain things. Like if they vote for identity purposes, they don't want to admit that. If they vote for a social issue, they may not want to admit that, etc. Because those views are very unpopular. Like if you notice, you'll almost never see someone who supports Trump. Maybe that's just because of where I'm from. It's that old bubble joke where Nixon won, I think it was 49 states, and someone from like New York said, I don't know a single person who voted for Nixon, even though he won New York. And that just kind of shows the insular attitude of the elites. And it's also just because it's very politically unpopular to vote Republican or to vote for Donald Trump, even though they used to hold a majority in both houses of government. So they had the support of most voters. But yeah, so I can't think of an exact one. I think don't get blackpilled, don't give up. Things are still going good. They're still going way, way better than they were. Once again, because we used to have Bush and the neocons and stuff. And they've been mostly discredited. John McCain's gone. We don't have to deal with his nonsense anymore. And you're going to take some blows. You're going to have some setbacks. Who knows? They might still cancel Brexit. Even if they cancel Brexit, though, it's still a victory because the entire media establishment, the entire political establishment of the UK was against Brexit. Came out against it. Everybody called the people like horrible names. Everyone attacked them. But it still paid off in the end. And they still won. And it's just another example. I think it delegitimizes them when they override popular democracy. When they overturn the results of referendums. When the Supreme Court strikes down stuff that is popular. I think it does hurt democracy. And I think it does delegitimize the system. So we'll see how much of a disaster it is. Can Trump win re-election? I think it's way too early to say. I don't think it's an impossibility. We'll have to see. The next 2 years are going to be crazy. Just what he can bring to the Supreme Court, etc. Because with the larger majority, he can probably get approved just about anyone he wants. So we'll see if Trump just starts appointing more and more radical people. Because if he can do some stuff like fix voter ID laws and birthright citizenship and some other stuff, the Republicans might have a real chance of taking it back because they'll remove people from the rolls who shouldn't legally be allowed to vote. Anyways, that's all I have for now, and I'll talk to you guys later.